So company file setup. Before even being able to access QuickBooks, right? We need to understand that we need to create a company file to begin with. We need to create a working data file. Now, when we talk about creating a working data file, you do need to have some kind of idea of a company in order to set up the file, right? You can't just go right into QuickBooks and start right away. You need to have some kind of business or some kind of personal, file to be able to do the functions that QuickBooks has. Now, if you remember from if you remember from yesterday, right? I've already spoken to you guys that this book already has a company file that exists that allows us to work with and go through each chapter. So in this case, right, when I go through chapter 12, it's not going to tell me to open up anything, right? Because in this case, right, this should be chapter 1 actually, or chapter 2, because right away you're not able to access or be able to access QuickBooks without creating a working data file. So for those of you who were with me in the accounting program earlier, the accounting class, I had you guys do a business plan. This is where the business plan is going to come and take place. So that's going to be another example for you to be able to create yourself a company file or a working data file. So here, right on page 446, you're going to see that you need to have these 12 steps in order to create your company file, okay? Now, majority of these steps are actually going to be things that we learn throughout the rest of the course of this class. But I do want to show you how to be able to do the number 1 and do number 2, and lastly do number 3, which is set up your chart of accounts. So again, the rest of the steps, so step 4, right, entering opening balances, we're going to take a look at that in chapter 13. How to do a general journal entry, and then it says right here, enter in custom transactions. So again, that is also going to be dealing with chapters 4, 2, and 3, all of that. And then step 6 says, if needed, enter your year-to-date income and expenses. So again, we'll talk about that more in chapter 4 and chapter 2. Income is going to be in chapter 2. Expenses is going to be in chapter 4. So that's going to be this week and next week. Then number 7 says adjust sales tax. We don't talk about sales tax until chapter 3, right? And then adjusting inventory, we won't talk about inventory until chapter 8. Setting up payroll, we won't talk about that until chapter 9 and 10. And then, of course, verifying the trial balance. We won't learn how to do a trial balance until chapter 6. So, and of course, choosing the closing date as we go through there. Choosing the closing date, we don't talk about that until chapter 14. So for today, yes, that's a lot of things that we're skipping today, but the crucial idea is those steps are only if you are a pre-existing company, as in you've been operating for years and you have all this extra information that we need to add in to update, as if you're using QuickBooks for the first time for a company that already has been doing bookkeeping for a while, okay? Has been keeping their track of their income and their expenses for a while, okay? But in this case, what I'm going to teach you today is going to be steps 1 through 3, assuming that we are a brand spanking new company, as in we don't have inventory yet, we don't have payroll yet. And every step of the way, I'm going to teach you piece by piece of every single chapter, including everything I just talked about from steps 4 through 12. Now, of course, with steps 4 through 12, that doesn't mean that when we're completely done with this class, you can go ahead and bypass that. No, I would recommend you, after we finish the entire course and we learned all these chapters, I would recommend you to go back to chapter 12 and enter all of these information in. All right, because in here, because this is chapter 12, right? They're assuming you already know how to do all these steps because, again, what I've mentioned was chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 8, chapter 10, chapter 11, right? I've already told you all of those chapters listed right there. And in this case, we haven't even read those chapters or gone through those chapters. So this chapter is going to assume that you already know how to do it because it is the end of the book. So in this case, for all this information, right? This had to be done through your reading, so you may get questions in regards to that. But for today, I'm only going to be teaching you steps 1 through 3. Okay? Now, here's what I like to say. I like to recommend to add in a step 0. Because before you can even create a start date or even creating your QuickBooks company file, you need to have a business plan, right? You need to have a starting point, a starting point in regards to what kind of company you are. Because if you don't have any of those ideas, right, you will be spending hours on the company file setup, okay? Because when we go through the company file setup, there are 2 ways that you can be able to create that file, right? And the tricky part about that is for Advic users who've used QuickBooks already, you already know exactly what your company is going to be. Whereas if you are a beginner user of QuickBooks, this is where you're going to be asked a series of questions, and in order for you to answer those questions, you need to know a lot about your own business, okay? You need to know, well, what products do you sell? Do you charge sales tax? Are you going to have employees? Those are the basic questions you need to ask yourself when creating a company file, okay? And you need to have a company idea in order to create a company file. Now, yes, you can create yourself a personal account where you can keep track of your own personal income and your personal expenses, right? Instead of establishing yourself as a business entity, you establish yourself as other. Okay, so you're just using the program to keep track of yourself instead of a business. But because this is QuickBooks and because this is mostly for creating your own business and keeping track of your own expenses and income, then that is the reason why QuickBooks is widely used, because you're not using it to keep track of your personal life, because you wouldn't use half of the features that QuickBooks offers, where if you understand it on a company's standpoint, you will. Okay? You will maximize every feature that QuickBooks has to offer, and it will make it that much easier to, bookkeep, file taxes, and so on and so forth. Okay? So first thing they always say right here, number 1, is to create a starting date. Now, in this case, a starting date is going to be recommended to be the very beginning or the last day of your last fiscal year. Okay, so when we talked about calendar and versus fiscal year, calendar year is January 1st all the way to December 31st, and fiscal year is any 12 consecutive months. Now, here's a recommendation here as well. A start date is only recommended if you are, once again, a pre-existing company. So if you are trying to get the best benefit of recording your income and your expenses, you want the most accurate information, the best recommendation is going to be the very last day of the very last of your last fiscal year. So in this case, if I decide to start, or if I have an existing company, right, in order to make my expenses and my income the most accurate, I would choose, if I'm starting this year, 2022, I would choose the date of December 31st of 2021. Okay? Why? Because if you start on the very, very first of the day, it's going to backlash and backtrack because you're not going to be, because it's not going to count January 1st. And you could possibly get funky numbers as you enter in your numbers starting on January 1st. Okay? Now, that's only true if you are a pre-existing company. But if you choose to be a, if you're choosing to start your company whenever, or you're a brand spanking new company, they just recommend you to start on the very last day of the first month that you're starting. Okay? Or, excuse me, sorry. You're going to start the previous month. Last day of the previous month on the month that you're starting. So, for example, right? We have a fictitious business called Coffee Cafe. If you start your company as of June 1st or June 4th, whatever, what you're going to do is you're going to select May 31st of that same year. Okay? Now, because you are choosing that date, because that's your starting date, obviously what you're going to do is you're going to backtrack any transactions that happen between June 1st all the way to June 4th whenever you start your business, because that's going to give you a more accurate depiction of your expenses and your income. And however, when you do end up starting up your company, right, it's going to make sure that you do get the most accurate information. Okay? And then from there, you can establish, are you going to be calendar year or fiscal year, which is more towards when you're going to be filing taxes, okay? Right, calendar year is for when you are usually less busy in December, okay? Where fiscal year, you're usually less busy during the summer to file your taxes. So a great example would that be, for example, a regular business, right? Usually December is where it's Christmas, it's winter break. So then they're not as busy, where during the summer, they're trying to get, businesses are trying to boom in. So a great example would be like a swimsuit company, right? Swimsuit company, their most popular business days are usually spring, summer, and maybe even fall when the water's not so cold. But during the winter, yes, there's some winter sports, but it's not as popular during as the summer, right? And then for a fiscal year would be the government, right? The government is always busy during October, November, December, right? Usually that's election dates for whatever year that's on. Another time it could be, where the city and the state and the government are preparing for new taxes for the new year. So they're very busy during those months. But when it comes to the summer, there's nothing left to do, no policies, no anything, so they can prepare their taxes during the summer, which is less busier for the company. So that's the reason why you would choose a calendar versus a fiscal year, based on when is your busiest months and when is the months that you're not busy to file taxes, okay? Because you have to file taxes every single year, right? So there you go. We talked about the starting date and what the difference is between calendar and fiscal year. So let's go ahead and dive right into setting up your company file. So again, once you establish your starting date, right? Since we are a brand spanking new company, we're gonna assume that we're gonna start our date accordingly. So in this case, it says right here, step 2, which is to create your company file, okay? So in this case, we've mentioned this before. There are 2 ways that we can enter in or create a company file. So if you, when we talk about this, right, let's take a look. So if I open up my QuickBooks, this should be the very first screen that you should see, okay? And what this tells you is, well, it gives you options on what you want to do. The first one option is going to be, would you like to open or restore a file? And we'll talk more about that today when we open up our first file, okay? And then the second one is to create a company file, and the third one is to use a sample file. So the great thing about having these little this window right here is, yes, you don't technically need to go in and dig in to locate your file. You can just simply, if you are using something that you were previously using before, you're able to access them here as well, okay? But in this case, I'm going to start off fresh. And the first thing I'm going to show you is, we're going to show you how to create a company file first, and then we'll go ahead and talk about opening and restoring a company file second, okay? We'll talk about that later on. So again, sorry, the first one is to create the company, and the second one is to open up and restore, right? So if I'm going to go ahead and click Create Company, right? What's going to happen is it's going to give me this little window right here telling me, okay, you're interested in opening a company file. What do you want to do? So in this case, do I want to create it for someone else? Meaning that you're creating the company file on behalf of the admin? Or are you going to be creating it for myself, which is going to be that that you're going to be creating the company file on your account. So in this case, we definitely want to use either one or the other. It doesn't really matter for this one, but most cases, you definitely want to either select either or, this one or this one. You have the choice. If you are doing a personal one, then you would create your personal one. But if you are creating it for someone else and being admin, then that's what this one is, okay? So you could choose either or. Now, if I'm creating it for someone else, what does it mean that I am creating it on behalf of the admin? Now, if you're creating the company file, you are going to be the administrator of this company file. As in, you're going to be creating the company file and adding all the information in there. So basically, if you're the main accountant, this is your position. You are going to be the admin of the QuickBooks file, okay? If you're the HR, if you're the sales representative, you are not going to have access to become admin, okay? It is strictly for the accountant, because the accountant is going to know more about, managing the positions, but also knowing what income and expenses to put in, and knowing how to fix and understand how to use QuickBooks. So again, you're also setting up the chart of accounts, rules and regulations. So as the accountant, right, your job is a lot more responsibility than a simple bookkeeper, okay? So once you click this, right, down below you have detailed start, okay? And then right here on the right side, you have in blue, start setup, okay? These are two different ways that you can set up your company file, right? We have the detailed start, and then we have the express start, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about the difference between those. The express start, and we'll take a look at an example also today in class. The express start literally is where you just enter in your company information, right? And you're going to set up your entire company file manually, okay? What do you mean by manually? As in, you're going to have to go through the list of preferences. You're going to have to go through, yes, I have employees. No, I don't have employees. You're going to have to answer those questions on your own, okay? And this, once again, the express start is actually for more advanced level users of QuickBooks, where they've already created company files multiple times before. They know exactly what to make changes to preferences and how they like their company file to look like. Okay? Where the detailed start is for those who are not really familiar, or beginner users of QuickBooks, who's not quite sure what questions or how to be able to set up preferences and so on and so forth. Okay, so today I'm gonna show you how to use the detailed start, and then at the end of the lesson here, I'll show you how to use the Express Start, and I'll tell you how different it is, and comparing and contrasting the two. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right into the detailed start. So I do need you guys to kind of help me figure out these little information here, but don't worry, I have a copy if you guys cannot read it. So let's go ahead and go through the detailed start. Okay. Now the detailed start is also known as the easy step interview. Okay, Express Start is just Express Start. Okay, so easy step interview or detailed start, whichever way that you want to refer it as, they're the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and click on detailed start. So as you can see right here, there's a little progress bar of how many questions that you've gone through and what you've completed. Now, in this case, you can leave the interview at any given time, but the only problem is it possible you can come back to it? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, depending on how far you've gone through the interview. If you finished at least setting up the interview, then, or setting up your company file, as in like getting to the midway point, then yes, you're able to go back to it. But if you say you're starting right here and decide to exit out of it, you would have to recreate the new company file all over again. Okay? So that's a little trick for your information. So that's why I prefer you to create a business plan so you have all those questions answered, so you don't have to go through these interview, don't know the question. You can skip, but the more information that you put on there, the more easier it is for you to access the QuickBooks a lot easier. But the less information that you don't know, the more it's going to, you keep skipping, it's not going to benefit you as much as, like I've mentioned, right? So in this case, it's going to ask you the very, very basic information, such as company file now, or company name. Now, in this case, you need to know the difference between a company name and a legal name. The company name is going to be the file title, okay? It's so in this case, you don't technically need to put your actual company name. You could put my company, your company, Lynn's company, whatever means that you can recognize that this is the company file is what your company name is. Okay, so in this case, this is Imagine Photography. Okay, and then the legal name. Okay, the legal name is what is going to be on your actual business license. Okay, what you filed, the federal, state government, whichever it is that you chose, right? Mostly it is state and local agency. You're going to be filing for a business license. Okay, now are you obligated to have this? In this case, it is not starred. Just because, like we mentioned before, right, you don't technically need to have a company or a legitimate company, but the purpose of using QuickBooks is to help companies. So in this case, no, you don't really technically need to have one, but if you are a real and existing company, you definitely need to 100% have the legal business name, okay? Even if you are incorporated, you need to have that incorporate status on there, okay? because this is important because, like I've mentioned this before, because the very next question is you need to enter in your business tax ID. All right. Now, in this case, like I've mentioned before, QuickBooks is going to be a means to help you file for taxes, right? If you did not know this, Intuit is actually the owner of TurboTax. So they take information from QuickBooks and pop it right into TurboTax, and boom, your taxes could be instantly done in a matter of minutes. So again, everything is connected. All right. This just makes it much easier for you to file taxes because if you enter all of this information in, QuickBooks will know what information to pull from your file and then once again, file taxes for you 10 times faster than you would do it manually. All right. But of course, I would recommend you to also seek a professional tax accountant, of course. And I believe you, by law, you have to actually go to a legitimate accounting firm that does special taxes for these types of businesses. So you, yes, you do have to incur those costs so you don't, mess up on your taxes for any reason. But in this case, that just makes it that much more easier. So then you send your tax accountant a copy, and they'd be able to pull the information to be able to file the taxes for you much quicker. Okay. Now, of course, you're not obligated to have to do it, okay? So it's just a recommendation, so then it just makes it that much easier to file taxes. So in this case, this company is called Imagine Photography, Incorporated, all right? Tax ID number. So in this case, my tax ID number is going to be okay, so let me see. Tax ID number is 11-3456789. Okay? And address. It's not required, but if you are doing business, right, and you have your company address, again, it makes it that much more easier, especially if you're having shipping, if you're having inventory ship out to you. Having your business address is going to make it that much more easier for you to select, so you don't actually have to type in your address at all the time. So in this case, this Imagine Photography is located at 123 Main Street. Okay. City is going to be, so we got 123 Main Street. And it's going to be, city is going to be Pleasantville, Pleasanton, yep, I got it.
Pleasure.
Pleasanton, California.
No, that's wrong.
Pleasanton, California. Zip code is going to be 94566. Phone number, okay, is going to be 925551111. Okay. Is there a fax number that you need to have? You can. It's usually most businesses have fax numbers, so you can, send in or send out, documents to each other quickly. It's going to be the same exact number except the last digit, so is going to be number 2. Now the email address, okay, is going to be info at imaginephoto.info. Okay. You're not obligated to have to have an address unless you are going to, but in this case, we're just filling in this from the book, okay? So imaginephoto.info, okay? And do you have a website? Yes, it's called Imagine Photo at info. Okay, hold on. Should be Imagine.
That's a www.
Yeah, at Imagine Photo.
Info. Yeah.
Yeah, www.
Info.
imaginephoto.info. Okay. So that's the very first section, is entering in the basic information or the basic contact information for this company. Okay. And then we can go ahead and continue on next. Okay. So the next section is going to be talking about selecting a type of industry you belong into. So as we mentioned before, right, there are industries, and then those industries go into specific industries, okay? So in this case, what kind of industry do you belong to? In this case, right, Imagine Photography is obviously a photography type of business, right? We either do videography, we do photo shoots, we do things like that. So whatever criteria that you fall under, right? So most people, right, if you're trying to create a business, right, if you're a retail or a restaurant, you just go to restaurants and things like that, right? There's a huge list. Now you have to choose one out of this list. So in this case, we're going to be doing art, writing, and photography because we're photography, right? So it's important that you know what kind of industry you belong into. Okay. So then the next question is going to ask you, what kind of business organization are you? Okay, so in this case, there are a total of 5, and of course, you could choose other. Okay, so if you are doing a personal company file for your personal income and expenses, you would choose other. But if you are already, right, it should be on your business license, establish what you establish yourself as. Now, again, if you could see underneath in gray, right, it gives you a description of what each entity is. Now, again, this is once again, you kind of need to know the background information, especially if you already applied for a business license. Sole proprietor, meaning it's only you who own it. A partnership is where you and another individual go into business together. Limited liability company, where it's part partnership, part corporation. And then you have the different types of corporations. Okay, so you got the S corp, and then the nonprofit, and then other. Okay, now in this case, I believe we are an S corp. Okay, so and then once you establish that, then you can go ahead and click next. Okay, so then here's the question where it says, well, now you need to select the first month of your fiscal year. So again, this is not the same thing as your start date. This is when you want to file taxes. So in this case, when is the first month of your start of your fiscal year? In this case, I'm going to say, well, my company doesn't really do photo shoots during the winter because maybe our main criteria or our main consumers is weddings, right? It's very rare to have a winter wedding, right? Most weddings are usually in the summer, spring, or fall, right? So in this case, I'm going to say my fiscal year is going to start as of January, okay? Also known as calendar year, meaning the start of my fiscal year is going to be January and it's going to end in December. Okay, so then I can file my taxes sometime between December. Okay. And I click next. Right? So then now the next question is it's going to ask you to set up an admin and password. Now in this case, right, you usually typically should not do this while you are going through your process or going through your questionnaires, just because in this case, right, it is very likely that you could forget and that you could lock yourself out of the company file. Now, if you do lock yourself from the company file, unfortunately, you would actually have to go through Intuit to unlock that file or retrieve the password from Intuit. Okay? So in this case, they do recommend you to go ahead and add the admin password either after you're done setting up your company file, or in this case, right, you cannot proceed. Okay, so if you close this company file and you try to open it up again, it's going to automatically tell you you need to set up a password. Okay, the most important thing about setting up a password is because you have sensible data. We just added our tax ID number, which is a company's form of a social security number. Now, yes, a tax ID number isn't as as serious as a social security number, but it is you definitely don't want to let anybody else know that number, because you don't want other people or other companies to use that tax ID number and start, filing taxes under your name. Okay, so it's very similar to Social Security, right? You don't want other people to file taxes or steal your identity. So in this case, that's already the first sensible data that you already put into QuickBooks. Now, as we progress and go through every single chapter, we're going to be putting in customers' information, meaning phone numbers, address, and contact information. We can go as far as putting in customers' credit card information. Okay? And then even more, we can go as far as putting in our own bank account. Now, if you think, you can get away with not having a password and letting anybody be able to access your QuickBooks, you're in big trouble, because that's room for fraud. That's room for, someone stealing your assets. That's room for a lot of error. So in this case, QuickBooks is very, very, very intelligent, right? The minute you close out this company file, right, it's going to ask you, when you try to open it up again, it's going to ask you to set up a password immediately. It will not let you continue on without setting up a password. But in this case, I can skip it for now and come back, finish up setting up my entire profile, and then go ahead and set up my user and password, okay, or whatever I want to do. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and skip it for now, because oftentimes while you're going through this, you might write it down on a piece of paper and you might lose that paper or whatever reasons it is, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and click next. So we'll set up the password later on, okay? So now it's going to say we're going to now set up our company file. So this is the halfway point. And I'm going to go ahead and click next. Next is going to tell you, well, where do you want to save this company file? Well, in this case, let's see. I am going to create this. So again, I'm going to go to company. We're going to go to LVPTA, QuickBooks class, portable files. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and create a new folder, and it's going to be for the AM QuickBooks January 31st class, okay? So now I have a folder that I'm creating that's just for this class only. And if I double tap on it, this is where I'm going to save this folder. Now notice this. Whatever I typed into the company name is now my file name, okay? I just typed in Imagine Photography as my company name, and that's exactly what it showed up, okay? And that's exactly why I said the difference between entering a company name and the legal name is two separate things. One is to name the file. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and click save. So once I saved it, right, as you can see, it is creating my company file. And let's see what it says. The action required Windows admin, okay? Yes. Okay, so there you go. I'm creating my company file. Okay.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
Is it okay to save it in the desktop or not?
Is it, I'm sorry, say it again?
Is it okay to save it in the desktop?
Yes, you can absolutely do that. Yes, that's 100% fine. Now, of course, this is for practice purposes only. Now, I do recommend if you are working in an office, obviously, you don't want to have it right there on your desktop because, again, room for fraud. People can go in there. People can access it, especially in the office. You definitely want to kind of hide it. You don't want to have it laying around just because. So in this case, you might have to put it in, bury it in a couple folders. Yes, it's going to be a little tedious to have to go through, but once again, if you are going to password protect your computer, have the file password protected, whatever means it is to safeguard this company file is going to be better on your end. But yes, you're completely okay with just putting it on the desktop if you want to. You don't need to create a folder specifically. But in this class, I want to make sure that we all have all the files together into one. Okay? So there you go. You're going to get this little note here saying, well, there you go. Let's go ahead and continue. Go ahead and continue setting up the rest of the QuickBooks company file. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. So the next question is going to be, well, what do you sell? Okay? So in this case, right, as I've mentioned before, you need to know the information of the ins and outs of what your business does. Because if you don't know that your business sells a product or not, then you're going to have to make up products. And then when you make up products, you got to figure out what they are because that's the next few chapters going on. You need to know what is the primary core of your business. Do you sell a service? Do you just sell a product? Or do you provide both service and product? Okay? And in this case, I provide both service and product because in this case, right, we're Imagine Photography. Our service is to go ahead and do photo sessions and have a photographer take photos. But at the same time, we offer packages such as I can print your picture on a nice canvas and put a frame on it. That's a product that I sell. So in this case, I provide both a service and a product. Okay? And I click next. Then the next question is going to be, do you charge sales tax? Okay? If you are in one of the 5 states that does not charge sales tax, then you would choose no. But in most cases, out of the 5 states, 45 of them charges sales tax. So you're most likely going to have to say yes. Now, again, if you are a manufacturing company, yes, you can have the option to choose no, because if your primary customer is to sell to retail stores or to wholesalers, you can choose to tax exempt those customers. But in this case, I'm a photography type of business. I will charge my regular customers, my commercial customers. Of course, I'm going to charge sales tax, and it's actually by law, okay, that most retail stores or most businesses are subject to have to charge tax, even if you are an online store. Okay, so therefore, yes. And then, of course, on the side here, QuickBooks is also going to give you recommendations in parentheses. So it's saying, since I sell a product and I sell a service, right? Service is one of those things that is non-taxable, right? Because it's based on someone's time. It's a flat rate. But because I sell a product, they recommend you saying, yes, you should be charging sales tax. So in this case, boom, yes, I do charge sales tax. Right? So then the next question asks, do you want to create estimates in QuickBooks? Now in this case, it really depends on your company, right? If you're a simple retail store that just sells products, then no, you don't necessarily need estimates. Now, what are estimates? Estimates are pretty straightforward, right? They are quotes, bids, they're giving you an estimated amount of what the overall service or product is. Bids, quotes, okay? So anybody can call in and be like, hey, how much is it for 1 hour of a photo session? That right there is someone asking and acquiring information about what your products and services are. And that's going to be a quote. So in this case, do you need to have estimates? In this case, because I am a service type of business, I'm more service than I am product-wise, yes. Because what if I have a client that comes in and says, oh, I want to book you for the future for a wedding shoot. What is your quotes? Now, estimates doesn't mean that it's going to be a guaranteed sale, but it is definitely a potential sale. Okay, so in this case, yes, I am going to have that. Okay. So then the next one is going to be tracking customer orders in QuickBooks. Now, this is only available for QuickBooks Premier and Enterprise. Okay, QuickBooks Pro cannot do sales orders. Okay, and that's exactly what we're talking about. Sales orders is going to be when customers call in and they say, I want this and this and this on this date. And that is a guaranteed sale. So because if you have the option to do estimates, then sales orders is going to be a definite. Okay, so in this case, yes, because that means I can have returning customers call in because they know what our quoting system is. They could be like, well, okay, I like you guys. You're a great company. I want to order this, this, and this on this date. How much is it? Okay, and that's what a sales order can do. And because we already chose that, yes, we could do possible bids, then yes. For guaranteed sales, yes, we do sales orders. Okay. Now the next one is going to be statements in QuickBooks. So, all companies should have statements for your customers. So what are these? So again, if you're a typical credit card company, right, you usually mail out your customers statements every single month, which a statement tells you what the activity that you've been doing, right? What purchases that you bought, et cetera, right? What was the transactions that occurred between you and the company, right? That's what a statement is. So this one should always be selected as yes, because yes, if you're allowing customers to create an account with you, you definitely need to keep track of their transactions and remind them, hey buddy, you owe me money, right? So yes, it's a separate from a bill, but a statement gives them their overall activity amongst on a given time period. Okay, so in this case, yes, I'd like to send my customers statements. Okay. So then the next one is going to be using progress invoicing. Now, if you selected that you have estimates, progress invoicing is more or less kind of in the same bubble, okay? What is progress invoicing? Well, progress invoicing is if you get an order or a bid, okay, or a quote, excuse me, you can take that quote, and if they agree upon those terms, so they say, yes, I agree, I want your services, this is how I want it done. you can choose to take that project and break it into sections and bill them according per section. So in this case, if you're building an estimate, right, let's say it's 4 days, right? Instead of charging them all in one shot for all 4 days, you can say, well, let's do 1 day at a time. If I completed the task on that 1 day, then I'll go ahead and bill you for that first day. And then the next one is going to be for the second day. I will complete the task, bill you for the second day. And we call that progress invoicing, where you can take a huge chunk of a project, split it and divide it either by the items that you sell or the service that you provide, or by percentage of completion. Okay? So in this case, if you do have estimates, yes, right? You should be able to have the capabilities of doing progress invoicing. Okay? Next one is going to be managing bills that you owe. Well, of course, that's the purpose of QuickBooks, is to help me manage the bills that I owe. When I create, or purchase inventory, or just purchase items in general, or even services such as, a subcontractor to fix up, plumbing in the office, okay? That's going to be something that you are creating an expense for, right? So in this case, the question here is, do you want to keep track of the bills that you owe? That is the main purpose of QuickBooks, is to help you facilitate that, right? It's to help you organize your ideas, help you manage, keep track of your bills, right? Keep track of your income and expenses. So this one is a given. Yes, I want to keep track of my bills, okay? Then the next one is going to be asking you, do you want to keep track of inventory in QuickBooks? So again, down below is going to be examples of what your inventory could be. So again, because we are a service/retail store, right? We're Imagine Photography, right? We sell services, but we sell products as well. If keeping track of your products is important to you, then yes, go ahead and choose yes, okay? But if it's just something that you don't really sell very often, which we'll talk about the difference between the inventories, right? We got inventory and non-inventory parts, okay? If you don't care to keep track of it, then you don't need to have this, okay? But however, let's say you choose to keep track of it, but not really, but it is a product that you do sell, then yes, you should automatically go ahead and click yes. Now again, a lot of services don't really necessarily need to be recorded as inventory unless it is, products that you use to create your service, then 100%. But when we talk about inventory parts and those kind of things, those are more or less going to be products that you do sell, whether it's in your store or to your consumers, right? So in this case, do you want to keep track of inventory? And their best recommendation is yes, because you sell products, okay? Now the next one is going to be keeping track of time in QuickBooks. Time is very important, especially if you choose to, once again, have employees, right? Especially because we are a service type of company, right? You want to charge your customers based on hour, based on time, okay? So yes, you definitely want to keep track of time. And especially if, let's say, you're not a service provider, right? But you have employees that work for you on an hourly wage. Yes, then yes, you definitely want to be able to keep track of time, because there's a section under employees that allows them to put in their time in their specific timesheets. And then when we talk about payroll, it will make sense. Everything gets plugged in. So therefore, yes, it is essential if you are a service provider, and two, if you have employees that work on an hourly basis. Okay? So then the next question is, are you going to have employees? So here's a fun fact. A 1099 or an independent contractor is not an employee. Okay? But they just put it under here saying yes, right? Am I going to have actual W-2 workers? Meaning, are they actually going to be on my payroll? Okay? And do I have to pay into their benefits? Yes. Okay? If you do have them, then select them. Okay? Again, W-2 workers, we'll talk about payroll in chapter 10 and 11 and what they do, what they can and can't do. But W-2 workers, right, are going to be people that are legally working for your company. Okay? So, yeah. And then independent contractors or 1099 workers, once again, they have nothing to do with your company, right? Their sole purpose is to come and do the job and get paid, right? They are responsible for their own taxes. They are responsible to pay into their own, like FICA, so federal insurance contribution act. They are 100% responsible for all of that, to do it on their own. 1099 workers are not people that are under the payroll. They are just mere expenses to the company. So again, it's kind of funny that they put it under here, but if you do have it, select it. Okay? So again, that could be for third-party vendors, right? People that you contract to do an event for you, right? 1099 workers. Okay? And then I click next. All right? So now it's saying, well, now that we're going to be using accounts in QuickBooks, how are we going to go ahead and continue on here, right? So what kind of accounts do we need to use? So let's go ahead and click next. So once we do that, next question is going to be select a date to start tracking your finances, okay? So once again, this is going to be the start date, okay? You could choose the beginning of the fiscal year, okay, which is, it says right here, it's going to be January 1st, but we do know the rule, right? If you're choosing to start on a start date, you should definitely select December 31st of the previous year. So in this case, I'm doing as of 2022, okay? So there you go, December 31st of the previous fiscal year. In this case, because I established my fiscal year starting to be January all the way to December, that means the last day of my last fiscal year is December 31st of the prior year. Okay? And that's my start date. So then I click next, and then this is where you are going to be setting up what's called a generic chart of accounts. Now, in the next section, when we come back from the break, I will talk about what and how to set up your chart of accounts. Because in order for you to be able to start manually bookkeeping or keeping track of your income and expenses, you need to have an idea of how you're going to organize those transactions by creating a chart of accounts. Okay? So in this case, right, when we're taking a look at our business, are we going to have sales? Yes, because we sell a service and product, right? So that is definitely given, okay? And I can just go ahead and select it. Now, for any reason that you already have a pre-existing company chart of accounts, you can just make sure that all of these are unchecked. And then when we talk about the chart of setting up your chart of accounts, that's when you can go ahead and upload your chart of accounts from, a pre-existing working data file or a pre-existing, Excel file that has a chart of accounts, okay? But in this case, right, this is as if I'm starting my company brand spanking new. I don't have any idea what this company does. And we'll talk about what you do need and what you don't need, okay? Now, as you go through your chart of accounts, right, what do you think are the necessary transactions that could possibly happen? So that's why sales is selected. And when you select these are going to be created for you automatically. So it helps you save some time here by creating a generic chart of accounts, okay? Where instead of having to go through the chart of accounts and entering every single one individually, this will save you time because it already created what it is that you need based on the industry that you selected. So in this case, if you remember, we selected art, writing, and photography. So if you take a look here, you got studio fees, you got rental fees, you got subcontractor service fees. Okay, so again, it is based on the industry that you select on, right? Are we gonna have advertising and promotion? Sure. Are we gonna? No, I'm not gonna have subcontractor. Bank service charges, gonna be for sure automobile expenses for traveling. Okay. Now, of course, these titles may not be the ones that you want to look for, but that's okay. We'll talk about editing and, editing our chart of accounts later on. But right now, this is just selecting accounts that could be potential accounts that you want to use for your accounting for the chart of accounts, okay, for the future. Okay, but again, you can also choose to unselect all of them and just start your chart of accounts empty or fresh, completely start out from fresh. Now, in this case, of course, you're going to have the standard ones, such as your checking account. That's always the first one. And your basic ones, such as, inventory, right? Equipment, etc. Okay. But in this case, I'm saying, do I want to ask my accountant? No, I don't want to create an account for that. And that should look good. Okay. So once you establish what accounts that you could possibly use, you could go ahead and click next. Okay. So then now it says here, congratulations, you have successfully set up your company file. So now I'm going to go ahead and click and go to setup. Okay. So once you've done that, now it's actually creating your company file. It's putting all your preferences together. And now it is asking you this one question. So what do you want to do? What do you want to set up? Well, in this case, right, it says you want to set up your products and services. We will talk about that in chapter 8. Okay? Or do you want to set up people the first one's people. Do you want to set up people, such as your customers, your employees, your vendors? Chapter 4 is your vendors. So we're going to learn about that this Wednesday. Okay? Your customers is going to be on Monday for chapter 2. And then employees is going to be in chapter 10. Okay, which is in 3 weeks from now. Okay? So in this case, no, I will go through this with you guys one-on-one as we go through each chapter. Then the next one's going to be setting up products and items and services. Again, that's going to be chapter 8. And then what I'm going to do here is, do I want to add my bank account? In this case, let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to click add. Then you're going to get this little window right here, and you're going to add your crucial information that you need to set up your bank account. Now, once again, I will advise you for this. If this is your legitimate bank account, please understand and note that that means this company file is 100% at risk for hacking, for anybody that wants to just go in here and pay themselves whatever they want to do. It means trouble, okay? But the way that Intuit sees it is it makes it that much more easier and comfortable and easy to manage your taxes, manage your company, because you can simply write a check and print it right out at your printer. Now, of course, we'll talk about that in chapter 4, right? You can't just print your checks on regular printer paper, obviously. You do need to get special paper and you may need to get special ink, okay? But for this case, right, you can do that if you are in an actual company office, just because, again, if it's just that much easier to just be handling things like that, just make sure you note that whatever means that you do to try to protect this company file, you need to do, or else it means trouble. But in this case, we're going to be setting up a fake bank account, okay? So right here, setting up my fake bank account, I have a checking. So that's going to be the account name. The account name is going to be whatever you call it. So it could be change. It could be if you're banking at Chase Bank, right? You can write Chase Bank checking, or what is it? Advanced Plus checking account. Whatever means it is that for you to be able to keep yourself organized, or just to keep yourself like knowing which account that you're looking at, make it the name so. But in this case, I'm just going to name this one checking. All right. And it's going to have a dash. And I believe it is going to be checking number dash, checking dash 3456. Okay. And again, right, typical, like most, if you're putting in credit cards or information like that, usually you have your last 4 digits, or even in your checking account when you go into your bank, your online banking, usually displays at least the last 3 or the last 4 digits of your bank account number. So that's essentially what I'm doing here, is I'm copying that idea. Okay, so I know which account this is. And of course, what is the account number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is going to be the bank account number. Okay. Now it tells me what is my opening balance. Okay. Recommendation: never put anything in your opening balance. Okay. Even if you're starting your own company, right? You can if you like. Again, because if you're using QuickBooks to start up your company, yeah, sure, go ahead and do it, right? It will save you a journal entry. But if you are a pre-existing company that's using QuickBooks to now, do bookkeeping, best recommendation and rule of thumb here, your book even says so, do not put anything in opening balances, because that's the reason for step 4 through 10, right? Or more so for steps 4, 5, and 6, right? Entering your opening balances using your trial balance and or a general journal entry, okay? Because the crucial thing about understanding is if you just add in numbers randomly, right, and you're not quite sure what you're doing, you can definitely mess up your QuickBooks just as is, especially when you're entering in opening balances such as accounts receivable, right? If I enter that in as people just owe me, customers owe me just $5,000, do I know who owes me that money? What if I have multiple people owing me money? Then that's where you're going to have trouble, because you said that you have an opening balance of $5,000. So what they do recommend is for you to backtrack, enter all of those invoices in, so then it equals the amount that you have for the opening balance. And that's going to be steps 4, 5, and 6. Okay? So in this case, best recommendation and best rule of thumb, do not add an opening balance. Okay? Second account that I have here is going to be a savings account, account number 3478. Okay? So savings. $3,478, and the account number is going to be account number 123478. Okay. Now again, obviously these are not really reflecting of a real bank account number, but that's okay because we're doing a fake example. So in this case, we're doing a fake bank account. This is not a real bank account. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and click continue. So the next thing it says, well, thank you for setting up your bank account. would you like Intuit to order special checks for you? Okay? And in this case, I'm going to say no, thank you. Okay? Because if you do this, they're going to start charging you additional money because you can't. In this case, Intuit's going to create special checkbooks for you guys. Okay? These ones are special checks that you actually use to print in your actual home computer. Okay? Do you need it? No. You can go to the bank, your actual bank yourself, and get a manual checkbook from the bank itself. Okay? But this is more geared towards for if you're printing checkbooks. Intuit says, hey, I can save you some time. I can save you some money here. How about you buy it from us and we'll print it out for you and we'll even give you a checkbook. You don't need it. So I said no thanks. All right? And I can go ahead and click or down here, continue. Okay? So there you go. Now I set up my bank account. All right? And I can go ahead and click start working. Okay? So here you go. I'll get this window right here where it's going to ask me to enter in my account information here. This is for to set you up with Intuit for their account and stuff. So again, just go through the questions here. Okay, so it says right here, tell us what you do and do in Imagine Photography. So again, you can choose that you're the admin, okay? Okay, and try to pull this up so I can click. Okay. All right, and then now it says right here, your email. So again, this one, you can't technically bypass. So again, you could put in your email, whatever email address it is. But again, if you have an account with Intuit, then that's where you pull it in. But I'll just go ahead and put this, my school email, or actually I'm gonna put the info at imaginephoto.info. Okay. And click next. Okay. And then it's going to ask you to sign in. This part you can sign in later. Okay. I can't get to my bottom button at the very bottom. Okay. Okay, there you go. So, so if you are downloading the student version, because the student version is also going to be the accountant's version as well. So it's a mix, it's a hybrid between the Premiere / accountant's version. Then you'll get the Accountant Center, which gives you kind of updates on what you need to do or what you have to do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that one. And then usually what happens is you're going to get new features that are available on QuickBooks, things like that. And I'm going to go ahead and close that out. Okay, and everything that we talked about. So then you're going to get these little messages in yellow. That's going to be new features that are new to this QuickBooks file. Okay? So again, everything that we set up, right, is right here, right? We said yes to estimates, so it's right here. We said yes to sales orders. We said yes to entering bills. We said yes to sales tax, right here, manage sales tax. We even said yes to inventory, right? So what you actually did throughout the entire time you were going through the interview, you were actually setting up the preferences that you need for the company file at the same time as also setting up your home page, okay? So again, if I do not need inventory, I can simply get rid of this entire section if I wanted to, right? And we'll talk about this tomorrow in chapter 7 on how we can customize or edit our preferences. But in this case, right, if I go to edit and click on preferences, what I can do is I can change and customize the way my my QuickBooks look right on my home page. I can even customize my icon bar and my other things I can customize, right? But in this case, we looked at all of these questions right here, right? We talked about sales tax. If I click on sales tax and I click on company file, right? Right here at the top says, do you charge sales tax? And I clicked yes. Okay, so all of these things that I'm looking at right now are all the set of preferences that you went through when going through the interview, right? I have enter time, I have sales, I have reports and things like that, right? So this is what I was talking about when we are going to be setting up and saving our preferences. So again, chapter 7 is going to be more so on how to customize those preferences and so on and so forth. But to make your QuickBooks the most optimal, right? Going through your preferences is key. And we already went through that by going through the easy step interview. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to close this company file and I'm going to show you how to create the company file using the express start. Okay, so if I go ahead and close my company file, so I'm going to go to file and I'm going to click close company. Okay, close company. All right. So that means the next time I open this company, it's going to ask me to set up my password. All right. But let's go ahead and so I close my company and then we got to wait for the window show up. Okay. What if I decide to create a company file and I decided to use the express start? Okay. If I click, I'm going to create it for someone else or whatever, personal, whatever you want to do, it's your choice. So let's say I want to use the express start. So remember, detail starts at the bottom. Express start is this blue one right here. If I go ahead and click on express start, right, and I enter in a company file. So let's say I'm going to do, my business name is Coffee Cafe. Okay. What kind of industry do I belong to? I'm going to type in restaurant. Okay, because I'm a cafe, so therefore I sell food. Okay, I'm a caterer or bar restaurant. Okay, business type. Okay, drop down menu. I'm a sole proprietor. Okay, admin email. So in this case, we could say this is Bob at coffeecafe.net or .info. Okay, we're making it up. All right, employees identification number. Once again, it is not required unless you want to use it for taxes. So I'm going to skip that. Business address. You don't need to have a business address to exist. Okay, so in this case, I can skip this whole section if I wanted to, and so on and so forth. So in this case, I'll just go ahead and skip it for now. And I'm going to go ahead and create company file. So here it is, it's creating it for me. It's saving it into that same folder that I've placed the other Imagine Photography, okay? And let's keep going and see what happens, okay? Right, it is creating it. There you go, almost done. And here you go. Do I want to set up a bank account or any of my people or products and services? I'm going to say not now. Okay? And that's it. Now let's take a look at my home page. There is nothing on my home page. Okay? Why? Because I didn't set up any of these preferences. Like as you see, there's no inventory, no sales tax, no bill, except for bills. Okay, bills is there. No estimates. Actually, there's estimates here, but let's see what else is there. No, there's time, but I didn't set up my employees, so I have no pay my employees because I didn't say I have employees. I only have keeping track of time. And what you have to do is now you need to manually go through all of those preferences. So go to edit on the menu bar, preferences, and you're going to manually go through every single one of these questions to set up your company file. So let's do that sales tax once again. Sales tax, right? Company. Do you charge sales tax? I say yes. And I'm going to click OK. Okay. Okay, now it's asking me to actually set it up. Okay, we already said that, yes, we're going to keep track of time. Okay, what else do we have? Let's do items and inventory. Items and inventory. Items and inventory. Okay, no. So items and inventory. Click on here. Do you keep track of your items? Yes, I do. Click OK. Right? And then watch. Now, if I go to my home page, okay? Now I have inventory, and now I still don't have sales tax. Okay? So in this case, there you go. You need to, that's why I said when we do the express start, you need to be an advanced user of QuickBooks because all those questions I just asked are a series of questions that you need to know about your company. And if for someone who's been building company files left and right, should know exactly what the company needs. So in this case, you would have to manually do it. Now again, it's not restricted to say only beginner users can use the Easy Step interview. No. Anybody can use it. It's just recommended for beginner users who don't know anything about business or not quite sure what their business is doing or how to set up a company file. That gives you a rundown of exactly what we just talked about, right? You need to know the ins and outs of your basic company in order for you to create a company file, right? Any questions in regards to the difference between the express start and the detailed start?
No.
I'm okay.
Okay. All right. So